Hi everyone, welcome back to Abrar Knowledge channel. Today's topic is type of sampling. This is an extension version of ANSI standard, which I talked about in part 1. So this is 230th video of mine in Abrar Knowledge channel. So let's quickly recap what we discussed in part 1 in the form of one quick question which you need to answer. So there was a question being asked in part 1. The question was 40,000 batch pieces are there in a batch, and you need to figure out three things. One, how much sample unit you need to take, and what is acceptable defective pieces per batch, how many are major, minor, and critical defects you can allow as per acceptable quality limit. So the answer was, of course, the answer was 500, and there were three other conditions to be met. One is critical defect should be 0, no more than 14 major defect, no more than 21 minor defects. So let's see what we have in part 2. Part 2, we're going to talk about the sampling. Sampling, as we all know, that sampling is done due to various reasons. So constraint of time and cost, and the population attributes cannot be easily captured, and the process involved destructive testing and all that. So therefore the sampling is being used. So this is the type of sampling. One is called probability sampling, another one is called non-probability sampling. Probability sampling, so this is there in the ISO. In ISO there is also a small citation in there is ISO 19011, and that is auditing management system standard 2018 version, and the class number A meaning like annexure 6.3, where it talks about sampling. The whole class number 6 talks about sampling. In annexure I'm talking about A.6, A 6.1 basically talks about sampling. A 6.2, then it talks about judgment sampling. A 6.3, then it talks about statistical sampling. Even the sampling, it is also being referred in ISO standard also as well. Let's go back. So probability sampling and non-probability sampling, there are two canvas of the sampling itself, right? So let's talk about probability sampling. So probability sampling has got 4 elements. Okay, the main element is there are 4 elements. Number 1, simple random sampling. So you will take from the population, you will extract samples. That is called simple random sampling. Another one is called stratified random sampling. Stratified random sampling meaning, so you have, for example, you have different 3 colors of apples. You have from each things you will take one. Stat meaning like extracting from each group. And systematic sampling is properly you will organize everything, and then you will give an identification, and then randomly you will take the sampling. And then the cluster sampling is called, so you will take one group and evaluate the population based on sample. For example, there are 3 colors, red, yellow, and green, and you would take only one sample, that is called yellow, and then evaluate and then conclude for the entire population, right? So these 4 things called probability 1. So it's everything is a probability. One more important rule for probability sampling is everything has to be random, right? Randomly picked. So let's talk about non-probability sampling. Also has got 4 things. One is called convenience sampling, and where you have a lot of freedom to take it. You don't need to keep things in sampling order and all these. So this is called convenience. Judgment sampling meaning like you take one attribute and try to judge. For example, how many people in the city are spectacles, who wears spectacles, right? So it's only that group you will take and evaluate. Quota sampling, that means only specific to gender, specific to ethics, specific to one particular diverse thing you will take. That's called quota sampling. Another one is called snowball sampling. There's hierarchy. So top management to leadership and all that. That's called snowball sampling. So there are two things called probability sampling, non-probability sampling. And if you need this material, which I made it very tailor-made, if you want, I can also give this. You please comment it. I can give this material, no issues. So let's talk about another quickly difference between in a context like the probability and non-probability. What is that? Probability, as I said, that has to be selected randomly, and non-probability subject to judgment of the researcher. Everyone in the population has an equal chance of getting selected. So not everyone has a chance here. Use when sampling bias has to be reduced. So one of the critical topic in MSA measurement system analysis is sampling bias, right? So here, it reduces the error, margin error of sampling bias. Here it doesn't consider. So there is a huge chance of having the sampling bias as such. Useful when the population is diverse, useful when the population has a similar traits, similar attributes, similar types and all that. Used to create an accurate sample. Here the accuracy cannot be guaranteed, so that may be good and maybe cannot be qualified also as well. Finding the right respondent is not an easy. Finding the respondents is easy. So let's talk about the first one. The first is simple random. So in this case, it is simple method in which all the elements are being element is being considered. Population has an equal probability of being chosen. So everything you just take it and then you choose it. The advantage of this method is to free from the personal bias. The universe gets fairly represented by sample. You will get fairly amount of whatever the sample you take, that is a true representation of a population. Another one is called stratification or stratified sampling. That means you have three groups, you break it down. Like there is also in one of the 7 quality tool, right? This is one of the 7 quality tool, right? So what you do, you just let's say 3 machineries you have. So 3 machineries you just separate out, and then whatever the yield you get it, and then you just do it. So for example, in this population, you have 3 different colors of apples. So 3 things you will take it. The advantage of this method covers all the elements of the population, right? So for example, you have, let's take an example of simple election, right? So you have male gender, female gender, and age, a different age, and all this being covered. Cluster sampling. Cluster, as I said, that so when you have a different groups and all that, you wanted to the things are same, but actually like you can just the theme is you wanted to find out only theme, then you can do that. For example, this is also an election example. The population is broken down into many different clusters. Then cluster or subgroup are randomly selected. For example, cluster are different ages, sex, location, so on and so forth. Systematic sampling. Systematic sampling meaning like samples are selected from the population according to predetermined rule. So here you don't have a rule, right? Simple one, you don't place a rule that what is the identification, how do you identify and all that. But this is more systematic, right? So samples are selected from the population according to predetermined rule. In other words, every nth element selected from the population as a sample, and arrange all the elements in the sequence order, select the sample from the population at regular intervals. So we also talked about gauge repeatability, reproducibility, right? So in that you can follow more on that. So gauge repeatability and reproducibility, one symbolic example of systematic sampling. So then you have another type. These are all the type which is purposive sampling. It is also known as judgment sampling. Samples are selected based on the purpose or intention of the research, right? So these are all coming now. All these slides are coming from the non-probability. It doesn't follow any probability theory. The method is flexible to allow the inclusions of those items in the sample which are part of special significance. Another one is called convenience sampling, is one of the easiest sampling methods. Samples are selected based on the availability, based on the samples and all that. Quota sampling, so one specific attribute is being selected from it. So for example, it is one type of stratified sampling. you have different attributes, only one type you take it, and then you study it, right? Quota sum, where samples are collected in each subgroup until the desired quota is met, and the proportion of the sample doesn't match the proportion of the group of the population. Snowball sampling is also very interesting one. Referring sampling method is famous in social science surveys, where the population is unknown because you don't know, you know how many lions are there in Africa, right? You will not literally count and all that, right? So unknown and difficult to get the samples. Hence, the researcher will take help from the existing element to refer the other samples who can fit in the population, since it is based on the referral point, some nodal point, now referral point. There is also highly chance of bias. So what is the next step for you? So please do watch part 1 also as well. Part 1 was a specific technical question we asked. 4,000 elements are there, and what you know, and in a batch, how much sampling you can take, and we talked about the table and all that. Comment your questions if you have anything. Please do comment your question, and practice and apply and repeat the cycle as such. Plan, do, check, back. So thank you very, very much for all your great supports and all that. Please do like and comment whatever the questions, and if you like it and what portion of the video you like it, please comment, and it will be very, very motivating for me as such. So material is free to share. If you need any material, please comment. I will love to share this material if you need it. So thank you very much. You have a wonderful day ahead.